Welcome to the Magnificast, a podcast about Christianity and leftist politics. I'm your co-host, Matt Bernico.
I'm your other co-host, Dean Detloff. Matt, I got a new office chair today. Well, this week. I put it together, and I got to tell you, I'm excited to be podcasting from it.
That's cool. Are you rolling around? Are you swaying from side to side? Ergonomically
I'm
speaking?
rolling. I'm spinning. The ergonomics are perfect. My back has never been more aligned than it is right now. I'll probably just sort of live in this chair. I'll wheel around my apartment. I'll wheel it down the stairs. I'll never leave, and I'll be perfectly spinally adjusted for the rest of my life.
That's such good news. Nothing like an adult purchase of a chair that is good for your back. So important to have those.
Yeah, you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm sure my diaphragm is just in the perfect position for podcasting.
It does sound a little bit more straightened, a little straightened out. And that's great.
That's right.
Hey, you want to hear something crazy? I was at church this morning. That's not the crazy part. That's the normal part.
Whoa.
And there were two baptisms. There were two people there baptizing their babies. A co-baptism, I suppose. Anyways, the pastor said something deeply upsetting to me. Well, maybe not that. It's a little upsetting. They're like, oh, hey, these two babies, in 2050, they'll be 25 years old. And I thought, that's a horrible thing to tell me. That can't be right. I don't think so. I don't think that's probably true. And I was just thinking that how in 2050, the world might be significantly warmer if we don't reduce carbon emissions. So that's where my brain went to immediately was these two kids are going to be warm. They're going to be having a warm day in Scotland. So anyways, remember your baptism. And in the future, you might need an extra baptism just to stay cool, you know?
That's right. It's the perfect situation for Baptists because you can basically convince people to get into a stream of running water at any moment, I feel. And you can really just you could sneak up on them and give them a surprise dunking. It would be kind of like you're roughhousing in the pool, but really you're making sure they get into heaven.
The best type of roughhousing there is. Folks, this week we don't have anything really strongly to talk about. There's no overarching theme. We have lots of very small things that we'd like to bring to the table, though. So that's right. We're locking in. We've closed the doors. We've thrown away the key. Your parents will be here in the morning to pick you up. But for now, you're with your two favorite co-senior youth pastors. And we're going to just kind of talk about some Reddit questions about Christianity in one way or another. And then we're going to kind of talk about some smaller current events that are a bit more bite-sized in nature rather than doing a full episode on any one thing. So this is a classic Magnificast lock-in. I hope you're excited to be in here with us.
Yeah, I definitely am, and I do have to say right off the bat that the basement, it is looking like the Nightmare Before Christmas down there. There's a lot of bones and a lot of kind of decorations that are in various states of coming out of storage. People have been putting Santa hats on the skeletons, and I have put up many signs suggesting they shouldn't do that, but I haven't been able to solve it yet. I do feel like, I don't want to have a patrol. I don't want to have a bone patrol. I think that goes against the kind of abolitionist spirit of this church, but I am pleading desperately with the teens to not be dressing up the bones because I'm really trying to still kind of pitch to church members that they could see themselves down here one day. And I feel like if they see this is how we're treating the bones, they're not going to buy it. So just a public service announcement, do not put the Santa hats on top of the skeletons. We're going to have to probably get a separate storage unit for all of the Christmas decorations later on. But in the meantime, just be respectful.
Can you imagine going into the Capuchin crypt in Rome, Italy, and the guys who do have the robes on, the skeletons who are berobed, if they also had Santa hats on, that would be even more disturbing and outrageous. I could not handle that.
It would be a skeleton hat made out of finger bones.
Okay, that is fine. But if it's a regular Santa hat, no way. That's disrespectful.
There's a variety of really troubling sort of bone decorative choices that all of a sudden are entering my brain. I'm scared of things like missile bones, Matt, and I think that we should not be talking about it anymore. I don't want to kiss under the bones. I think it's just it's a spooky time. We've got to get off this trail already. My brain is starting to go into directions that it shouldn't.
All right, let me get your brain off off this extremely disruptive and disturbing idea of the missile bones. This is a Reddit question on the Catholicism subreddit, and it was asked 1 hour ago. I need help identifying a saint I saw in my dream.
Okay, easy.
Here's the dream. There's some preamble here that's sad, and I feel bad for this person, but we don't need to talk about it in this podcast. No bummers right now. Anyways, they were having a dream. They went to a hospital in this dream, and when they went to the hospital, they saw a man who was wearing a traditional brown habit and carrying a staff. He was bearded and he was bald. He was reciting prayers in what sounded like either Croatian or Romanian, but it could have been any Southeastern European language. Who can say? I mean, if you don't speak it, they all kind of blend together. In the dream, this person, the question asker, asked them what religious order he belonged to, and he just told me that he was Byzantine. He then proceeded to say a powerful blessing over my dad, and I asked him, sorry, that's part that I didn't read because it's too sad. Anyways, and then he asked this saint in the dream for a quick confession. Anyways, Dean, what saint could this be?
Let's see. All the facts. Balding, bearded, brown, habited, staff, and Eastern European, Southeastern European. I'm going to say it's Saint Bobislav, the doctor saint. And we all know him. He would wander around the countryside hearing confessions, hearing about all the bad things you did, and then he'd give you a powerful blessing and send you on your way. I think that it's an open and shut case. Saint Bobislav, feast day, January 32nd. Pretty easy.
Wow, I can't believe I didn't think of that, but I suppose only a Catholic would really know which priest is where, which saint is which. I could never know. That's for sure. I feel like it's an interesting choice to meet a supernatural being. I guess saints are supernatural beings in your dream, and then the thing that you do is ask them for a quick confession. I feel like that's cool. I mean, like, that's cool. I don't know what else you're supposed to do, when you meet them in your dreams.
You should probably ask for something cooler. You can get one of those from your regular priest.
That's true. I have been learning a lot about the history of the British Isles, as they were. I don't think that's the correct term to use. The island that
so you've been learning some things but not all things, and I think that's okay. We can accept that.
That was one of the things I haven't learned quite yet, is what you call this place. What you call this place sort of pre-England, I'm not sure. Anyways, the history of this big British island, and also some other islands that surround it that are less British, people are always having visions of saints. People love to have visions of Saint Cuthbert, and he's always telling you to go do something. And I just feel like maybe if they're not asking you to do something, if they're not sending you on a holy quest, are they really a saint? I don't know.
Saint Cuthbert. Now, he was the one with the big long nose, and he jumped on all those cubes.
You're thinking of Cubert, who's maybe...
Yeah, I mean... Saint Cuthbert.
He might be a saint. He might not be. I mean, when we all get to heaven, he will certainly become a saint, the video game guy. That's true. All right, Dean, do you have any questions?
I do. Now, this one, I think, is a pretty good exploratory one. The question is, what is your most conservative Christian take versus your most liberal Christian take?
Oh, gosh.
And I'm giving that to you, Matt. So put him in the gauntlet here. This is a cage match between the two Christians that live inside you, the conservative one versus the liberal one. What's your most conservative take and your most liberal take?
There are two lions that live inside you, the one that lies down with the lamb, and then the one that eats people who fall into the den. My most conservative Christian take is that hell is real, and then my most liberal take is that almost nobody goes there.
The perfect synthesis.
Yeah, hell is real, and only the people who want to be there are there. That's it. Everyone else just gets the long walk up from purgatory, and I guess that's fine. What are yours?
My most conservative Christian take is that Joseph definitely did carve that statue we talked about last week.
Okay.
And it's definitely right there in Belém, Brazil.
Yeah, very good.
And my most liberal Christian take is wowie. No, I don't think I have any. I'm just conservative.
You know what I'm really conservative about specifically is the conservation of the bones in the Capuchin crypt. I think they've got to stay there in pristine condition, and I'm excited to conserve those things.
Okay, my most conservative Christian take is that absolutely you should have a bone chapel. My most liberal Christian take is that there should be a lot more of them.
Yeah, that's cool. Man, imagine if there were more. Frightening.
My most Marquis de Sade sadist take is that there should be more bone churches.
Never mind. No, I'm not going to say anything more about that. I think I'm done.
Okay, great. If only Marquis de Sade had said the same exact thing you just said before writing literally anything.
There's like a Venn diagram of like of liberal Christian takes and Marquis de Sade, and you found the only overlapping bit, like the very small sliver of overlap.
All right, so that's an open and shut one. Do you have another one over in your big pile to pull out?
Yeah. Here's another one from the Catholicism subreddit. This is a quick observation that I'm having. The Catholic questions that I'm reading and kind of looking through are far more situational. They all are like taking place, I had this dream and what does it mean? And, this one takes place in a church and it's sort of a situation. Whereas in the Christianity subreddit, I'm finding that they're more focused on sort of detached weird wisdom and theological arguments. There's something to this. I'll have to put a pin in it for now, though. Okay, so this is a 3-hour-old question, and the question is blessing. The question asker asks, there's an usher at church who stands off to the side during communion, and after receiving communion and walking back to your seat, he holds out his hands and says, God bless you to everyone. Additionally, he has a rosary that he carries with him, asking all of the parents after church if he can bless their children, and then he gives a blessing with the crucifix to mark the cross on their forehead. Our group of parents have talked about how that makes us uncomfortable, and then when we ask him not to give a blessing, he says it's okay and does it anyways. So, Dean, how do you reject a blessing from somebody? Maybe not this. Maybe not this question in particular, in which case I would be like, you probably need to talk to somebody about that. But in general, how do you say, no, please don't bless me?
And it's just a guy, guy coming up to you, offering it.
Oh, no. Let me be clear. Sorry. He's not just any guy. He's an usher at church. So
okay, right.
A pretty important office that he holds. Yeah.
That feels like not the parents' problem. Let me put it that way. First of all, that feels like a problem for other people at the church who probably should have sorted that out. But I think that you say, I think this person has done all you can do is just say no. But when they say it's okay and they just go ahead and bless your kid anyway, I think you have to immediately just say that doesn't count. I think you have to say that right away.
That makes sense. Okay, so you say that doesn't count. And then
exactly.
Okay, then do you go get like a real one, or do you need to do anything to sort of like make one count?
No, I think you just say that doesn't count, and maybe you can tell your kids to cross their fingers.
Okay, now that works for when you're telling a lie and you're saying that you're telling the truth or you're breaking a promise, but it also works for blessings. That's great. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of a catch-all superpower that God did bless us with right away. It invalidates things that you say. It makes sure that you can't be blessed without your consent. I feel like it's something that we should, not encourage people to use more of, but we should encourage people to understand the utility of it.
Right. Just when you're in situations where someone's blessing you and you're not really sure about that one. That makes sense.
Exactly.
That is good. Hold on to that one.
But that doesn't count. I think it's really important that you do say it doesn't count as a parent, because it's kind of like then you're getting in between the blessing and the kid. And I feel like that's your parental duty. That doesn't count.
Good. That does make sense. Cool. Well, good to know. You can just cross your fingers and say that doesn't count. I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. You can try that at at your next church, when the usher does come by and try to bless your kid. Okay. This one is, what's the quickest denomination to get baptized in? And they say, I've been trying to convert to Catholicism for months, but the RCIA program is simply too long for me, and I'm unable to commit to it properly because of work and other stuff. And I'm assuming Orthodox has a similarly long process, so are there any churches that will just baptize me with a simple profession of faith? So Matt, this person cannot be bothered. They do not want to go to class. They do not want to do the homework. They just want McDonald's fast, super quick, drive-through baptism. What do you think is the quickest denomination to get baptized in?
So you would think that the answer would just be like any evangelical church, right? But you'd be wrong if you thought that, because they're going to be like, well, we only do baptisms like the fourth Sunday of the second quarter, and you have to get into our hot tub to do it, and like whatever. So it can't just be any evangelical church. So that does make things more complicated. I mean, I'd guess the Baptists, huh? The Baptists probably love to throw people in there.
Yeah, I mean, with the Baptists, you trip in a puddle and there's a pastor around you better watch out, because you might get an extra baptism.
That's like a great opener for your Christian stand-up routine.
Yeah, my ecumenical stand-up tour is launching this spring for sure.
If you trip in a puddle and your pastor says, in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, you might be a Baptist.
Catholics, they're baptizing like blant, blant, blant. Presbyterians, they're baptizing like wah, wah, wah. Am I right? We'll workshop that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you're probably right. However, okay, I'm not advocating this strategy, but I do want to point it out. Catholics, we all know, can baptize. All Catholics can baptize somebody under a condition of emergency. You know, somebody's dying. You can get in there and give a baptism. You don't have to have a collar for that. And I feel like you could kind of put this off until you really need it. And you could be like, all right, I think now's the time. And then just kind of ask around basically anywhere you go. And be like, it could be any moment. I could be going. It could be tomorrow. It could be in 10 minutes. And just kind of see who's willing to take the bait. That might be a way to kind of scam a baptism out on the cheap.
You're on the plane. It's going down. You say, is there a doctor on board? Is there a Catholic on board? And then you just, have them dump a little bit of Diet Pepsi on you and call it a day.
That's right. If I was on a plane and it was going down and someone looked at me, panicked, saying, I'm not baptized, I would definitely find some water pretty quickly before securing my oxygen mask. I would do that for them.
That's really nice of you. Here's something I'm thinking about. When you go to get your visa in the UK, I'm sure this is true for other countries too, but when you apply, you can pay an extra fee to make it go faster. And what if there was that in Catholicism? Not saying that you're going to for sure get baptized at the end, that you're going to for sure become a Catholic, because that would be too far, right? But just so you could speed the process up, like you could get to the front of the line.
I like that you're just reinventing the conditions for the Protestant Reformation, and I respect it, Matt. I think that it's fine. I'm just saying you should probably just become a Catholic if you're fine with that sort of thing.
This is part of my master plan to re-embolden people against Catholicism.
All right, so I think we've solved that. Do you have any others over there?
No, that's all. That's all I've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have one last one, and this is, are the last days really that bad?
Oh, okay.
And the body of the text says, all Christians keep saying today is eviler than ever. But looking back in history, all the horrible stuff went on, like slavery was legal, pedophilia was legal. I'm not sure about that. In biblical times, people's lives were ended for disrespecting their parents or even picking up sticks on the Sabbath. Lots going on here.
Yeah.
I say today is a great time to be alive, and I hope the future gets better. Are we really in the last days like Christians say? It doesn't feel like the last days. Jesus might return 1,000 years later. So, Matt, I mean, can these really be the last days? Because they're not that bad comparatively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is all about perspective, Are things as bad? Are there certain practices in previous history that are worse than sort of living life today? Absolutely. I'm here to say that for sure. But there are different types of bad that we're living through even today. that are uniquely bad in a sort of existentially soul-crushing kind of way, like the existence of ChatGPT, people falling in love with their chatbots. That kind of stuff is remarkably bad. And I think that if these are the last days, it's rough. It's a rough one. I suppose picking up sticks and then my parents, punishing me, that would be bad too. But I feel like there's a sort of a cause and effect to that I can respect, whereas the sort of evil and bad that we see today is sort of senseless and just kind of happening without any real repercussions to anybody, and I think that's bad too.
That's right. At least there's a logic to the stick punishment.
Yeah, of course. You pick up the stick on a Sabbath, of course you're going to get a punishment. But like now it's like, oh, yeah. I've married Melinda, my AI girlfriend. What? Like, that's awful. That's awful that's happened.
That is the kind of situation where you really got to ask, did that person have an ergonomic chair? Because it sounds like no. It sounds like they had their blood cut off at the knees.
Right. And perhaps had they paid more attention to ergonomics, they wouldn't be in the situation.
If you're sitting up straight, you don't need an AI girlfriend because all the blood will circulate through your brain and you'll have normal thoughts like a normal person. Do you think
it's bad or worse today than it was when the parents beat you for sticks?
I think that one important insight in this poster's bizarre body of text is that it's true that Jesus could come back in 1,000 years and it could be even worse than ever. And I feel like there's a world in which that is true. But I do like the idea of just being like, I don't know, maybe the last days are fine. I feel like people think when Jesus comes back, it's going to be like evangelicals would be like, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. The rivers are blood. Nobody can eat food. There's locusts everywhere. There's bugs with human faces. Who knows what's going on? I like the idea of like, I don't know, things are just kind of a general bummer. And then Jesus has to come back and he's like, I'll straighten it out. Don't even worry about it. Right. I feel like he could return in 1,000 years and be like, you obviously can't figure it out.
Right. Okay. Speaking of the last days, I have some last days news that I'd love to tell you about.
I'm ready.
Okay. So over on the podcast Discord, we have been reading Andreas Malm and Wim Carton's book, The Long Heat. It's the follow-up to the book they wrote last year called Overshoot. And it's great. I'm glad that we finished it. I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad that I stuck through to the end. It's a long book and sometimes meandering, but lots of interesting anecdotes and information and data to think about, especially when it comes to Marxism, for sure. Okay. The last chunk of the book that we discussed recently, as we were wrapping this one up, was primarily about geoengineering and solar radiation modification. So basically different schemes and ways that people, mostly billionaires so far tech bros, have schemed to blot out the sun just a little bit so that the global average temperature might drop. Okay. So that's scary. That's a scary thing to think about. It's also, I think, I don't know, it's a scary thing to think about, but it's also a thing that serious climate people do think about in terms of dealing with the climate emergency. Okay. So some governments have even done tests around it to kind of like gather data, not that they are doing it actively as a real means of climate, I guess, adaptation or attempted mitigation or something. But anyways, some governments have done experiments around these things. And I just want to flag one that the UK government did in 2021 and 2022. The title of this project is the Stratospheric Aerosol Transport and Nucleation Project. The acronym is SATAN, Satan.
Okay.
That, like, right. I read that in this big Andreas Malm book, and I was like, that must be a good joke, right? Like, that can't really be what it's called. And then I did look it up, and I was like, no, this is literally what it is. This is literally a test where the UK government sent sulfur dioxide up in a big balloon and just wanted to see if it would have an impact on the like reflectivity and that it would reflect the sun back into space rather than to Earth. And they decided that they were going to name it Satan. So I think that's an interesting choice that I would like to reflect on for a moment.
Okay, really quick on that. How funny is it that, all right, if you were an evangelical in the 2000s, you would have watched a handful of weird documentaries where your youth pastor would have been like, did you know that U2, Bono, one time he dressed up as the devil, and if you play it backwards, it's going to turn you into a Satan-worshipping weirdo, all this kind of stuff. And then billionaires are just creating stuff called Satan, and they just don't know that that's happening or don't care. I think that, I mean, I don't know. They got to get their antennas on right.
Yeah, it's true. They so that was in 2021, 2022. They are revisiting some of these experiments in 2025, and I remember that it was like a part of the news cycle for like one day, and that was it. And it's just like, this seems like such an infinitely bigger deal, but you know, whatever. What can you do? I guess if people are not going to be deterred from literally changing the environment in like this really dramatic way by something called Satan, I don't know what will do it. I'm not sure like what else you can do to be more dramatic and draw more eyes in, but literally calling your project Satan is not going to do it.
It's not going to do it. Some people are going to get into it, and I think that's too bad. There's definitely a subset of weird rich techie edgelords who are going to be like, we love Satan, and that is truly one of the worst constituencies out there, I think.
Big time. Yeah. Anyways, I would just like to say, in case it wasn't clear, I think that geoengineering, especially putting sulfur dioxide in the stratosphere, is awful, and it should be opposed in every way possible. It sucks so bad. What a stupid plan. Just stop. Yeah. Just stop doing capitalism, and stop fossil fuels. That's what you got to do. Not put very shiny particles in the atmosphere. That is bonkers. Okay. Dean, do you want to talk about something else before I get too mad about this?
Sure. Well, I'll talk about something else that also makes me mad, but in a different way. Okay. I don't know why we're getting mad around the holidays, but I guess that's just what the world is coming to. The last days are really that bad, on further reflection. So Pope Francis, you remember him.
I'm familiar.
He created a synodal process, a synod on synodality. And there were all kinds of synod conversations, trying to think about all kinds of stuff in the church. And the most kind of troubling one, or the one that's been the most befuddled by scandal and lack of progress and so on, has been a commission to study the ordination of women to the diaconate in the Catholic Church, which does not mean ordination to the priesthood, but it's like the step before that. Anyway, I mean, some people are deacons and they don't become priests. It's not like a natural step to it, but in any case, what I'm saying is it's not even a commission on the ordination of women to the priesthood, but the ordination of women to a specific kind of ministry. Anyway, it has gone through a number of iterations, lots of embarrassments related to it, but finally, just recently, the commission released a letter to Pope Leo reporting the results of their study, and it is very weird. So the commission, they reported a 7-1 vote in favor of a statement concluding that the church cannot currently move toward admitting women to the diaconate. So they said no, except for one person who was like, I don't know, didn't agree. The reports go on to say that only 8 votes were recorded from a 10-member commission. So the commission had 10 members, but apparently they didn't all vote on that specifically. Who knows why? The letter also stated that the commission was evenly split 5-5 on a statement that held that Jesus's masculinity and that of all who receive holy orders is not accidental, but rather an integral part of the sacramental identity. Bizarre, but a long-standing Catholic idea. And lastly, the commission voted overwhelmingly 9-1 in calling to expand women's access to ministries established for community service, such as the ministry of catechist or lector, formally instituted by Francis. It is quite frustrating because Pope Francis, over the course of the synodal process, was constantly being like, I don't know, he would say things like what the Holy Spirit is doing cannot be stopped. Or he would say stuff like, we need to have like a really open discussion, create an open discussion. And at the same time, we need to be able to kind of study issues of controversy in the church, which I think is like a fair compromise to make. I don't know. We can have a thoughtful discussion and be prepared to have that discussion, all that kind of stuff. But the idea that this commission has been like going on for a very long time and then finally was like, anyway, probably we just shouldn't currently move toward admitting women to the diaconate. And also, I don't know, half of us think that it's really important that Jesus was a man, and his masculinity and the masculinity of churches of priests is essential to what they're doing. It is quite frustrating. There have been a number of responses, but one that's been going around was by Phyllis Zagano, who's a longtime commentator on church stuff. And she put it pretty succinctly. She said, the substance of the letter can be translated quickly. Women cannot be ordained as deacons because they cannot image Christ. It is, in effect, a statement that the Catholic Church officially views women as other. She goes on to make a bunch of other points. She says even there's like a moment where the document is referring to other churches, and she says the document misstates Orthodox tradition, ignoring its long history of ordained women deacons, Orthodoxy's preferred term is deaconesses, throughout its wide and varied history and its recent past. The Greek Orthodox Church of Zimbabwe ordained a deaconess in May 2024 with the permission of the Patriarch of Alexandria and all of Africa. Pretty absurd. She goes on to conclude that the document does not rule out women deacons, so it's not like this letter is the final word on it. It's just like they're reporting the results of what happened in their commission. But she says it tries to, even as it states that more study is necessary. And I gotta tell you, it is so frustrating. I think it's also kind of interesting that it shows the promise, but also the limitations of the synodal process. I think that there's sometimes like an overly optimistic view of the synod that suggests that this is the like total democratization of the church. That I don't think has really ever been the task or the purpose of the process. And I think that you kind of see that here. And I think Pope Francis, too, was kind of caught between his own desires when it comes to the synod. I think he really did want a more participatory church, and there are many ways in which the synodal process has done that. I think that's good. But when you get to some of these like hot button issues or sticky issues, it seems to also be kind of a bait and switch. It's like, let's get everybody excited to talk about something that's pressing and important, only to ultimately discover that really we're not actually going to move forward at all. We're not going to actually kind of submit these topics for sincere discussion. We're just going to kind of, stay busy until we reaffirm everything's basically the same as it ever was. So, I don't know. It's a frustrating result. The church still teaches women can't be priests, but the kind of logic on which that rests is pretty flimsy. And to have a kind of even split, even on the commission, seems to suggest that, maybe the commission should have been made up of some other folks, at least a more diverse group of people. So anyway, the struggle continues, I guess, for women in the Catholic Church. But what a weird kind of weird sort of thing for the Vatican to be reporting on here as we close out the Jubilee year.
It's extremely weird. I was, as you were talking, I was just thinking, I've actually never been a part of a denomination that didn't ordain women. Even when I was a part of a very conservative church, even like the Church of the Nazarene, they still ordained women. Very interesting. And, whatever, not uniformly practiced or, all, just because they theologically or doctrinally would ordain women didn't mean it happened in practice a lot of times. But anyways, always been a part of those kinds of traditions, and I feel like this is always such a sticking point to me about Catholicism. It's like, why is this such a big deal to anybody? What do you make of that that particular reasoning, though, that like there's something particular about Jesus's masculinity? Because I could not parse out what that really means, I guess.
I mean, I think it's hard for me to even articulate the position in good faith in some ways because I just find it basically absurd. So I don't know, someone else could probably do a better job of like explaining it. Just personally speaking, like I have talked with people who hold that position sincerely, and never have I walked away from that conversation feeling like that is a coherent way of thinking. And maybe that's just I don't know, a bias of, you know, who I've managed to talk to about it. But it really, you know, it comes down to like a variety of assumptions about Jesus being the kind of figure after which priests are I don't know, these are not the right words, but kind of like modeled, or, you know, the priest is kind of representing Christ to the community, and so the priest should be a man because Jesus was a man. It basically kind of comes down to more or less that. People will say that it's more sophisticated than that. I am not convinced that it is, and I think the reason people try to convince themselves that it's more complicated than that is because that is an absurd claim and a very goofy idea. You know, it's also bizarre because like what exactly Jesus's masculinity is not very clear. Jesus doesn't really conform to the masculinity of, you know, I don't know, male nature throughout time or history or culture all around the world. And also what a male priest, like the way a male priest in one culture might express their own masculinity, you know, that way might be pretty radically different from how a male priest expresses his masculinity in a different culture. And I think that there's a certain, like, I mean, you can, like, maybe just say this is all, like, gender 101, you know, stuff like that. But the Catholic Church has never really gotten past some of those 101s, unfortunately, especially when it comes to a theology of the priesthood. So, I don't know, like, I'm sure someone else could do a better job of, like, explaining the position in good faith if there's such a way to do it, but I guess I'm just kind of admitting that I'm not sure there's a way to do that. It's just ultimately kind of a bizarre sexist assertion in my opinion, but I don't know, don't haul me before the Vatican over that point, but just to say I've not been convinced that it's more than that.
Fair. Sounds good to me. I'll take that for now. The gender ideology that we've heard so much about, maybe they should pay some more attention to it. Whatever. Anyways, for now, let's move on. I want to tell you about a new Leonardo Boff blog that he wrote just a few days ago. In fact, yesterday, as we're recording this. The blog is titled "What Is and What Is Not the Amazon." This is a cool blog. He's reflecting on COP30 a bit more, which we did ourselves last week. And I don't know. It's a nice blog. It's nothing groundbreaking, but there's kind of an interesting assertion in here that I think is worth making. When we think about the Amazon, especially at a place like COP30 or whatever, you know, we have all kinds of words that we use to describe it, like it's the lungs of the planet and so on. And you know, whenever I think about the Amazon, and I'm sure that other people are with me, I wouldn't imagine this is like a unique, weird imaginary that I have about the Amazon, but I imagine it as like, you know, a very, a place that's extremely set apart, right? That is just like an untouched bit of crazy rainforest. And, you know, it is, I'm sure, in some ways a place set apart, and you know, has those aspects to it as an untouched rainforest. But the point of Boff's blog is to say the rainforest is not that, and it's never been sort of an untouchable or virgin type of land. Dozens of indigenous people have lived there and still do live there, and they have, you know, modeled what living, you know, alongside ecology and what living alongside the Amazon can actually look like. To me, this is just like a helpful intervention because maybe just because of like the weird imaginary world of the Amazon that I have in my head. Like, I don't know, my son used to watch this TV show called Wild Kratts, and it was these two guys who would go out to, you know, the rainforest or to wherever, and they would like show you animals and show you crazy stuff. And it was great. And I don't know, I was watching it, and they'd go to the Amazon all the time, and they're like, oh, look at this tree frog, look at this big snake, and it's like, oh man, that must be out in the middle of nowhere. But but the Boff blog tells me actually, you know, people have been living alongside the Amazon rainforest in a type of like, you know, harmony, more or less, in the past, and that's something that we should actually be paying attention to. So this is a quote I'm going to read really quickly. The idea that the Indian is authentically natural represents an incorrect ecologization of its nature, a product of the urban imaginary fatigued by the artificialization of life. He's a cultural being. And then it goes on to say a little bit later, for 1,100 years, the Tupi-Guarani dominated a vast territory that stretched from the Andean slopes of the Amazon River to the basins of Paraguay and the Parana rivers. Between the indigenous people and the forest, the relationships are not natural but cultural, in an intricate web of reciprocity. They feel and see nature as part of their society and culture, as an extension of their personal and social body. It's actually a really helpful intervention into the ways that we think about nature as being like, this thing that's purely not human. It's something, we're constantly sorting things into the human or not human category. And this also kind of helps me recontextualize a bit. And last week we talked about another blog that he wrote that relied on the story of Chico Mendes quite a bit. Chico Mendes was a trade unionist and also sort of an ecological martyr who was murdered. Anyways, but it helps kind of recontextualize that story because Chico Mendes was an advocate for, sort of a radical ecology that focus on like pure conservation or like making sure nobody goes into the rainforest, but instead like opted for a type of living alongside the rainforest. A kind of an interesting example of the way that nature is never purely nature. It's always kind of crossing into this cultural territory, and that can be complicated and like really intertangled, but a good reminder that people have lived alongside nature for a very long time and they did not cause climate change. It took a different type of person for that. So cool blog. I'll post it in the show notes if you want to take a look at it yourself. It's worth reading. It's pretty quick. Just you have to translate it into English. You can do that in your browser or whatever. But it's good to read.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's also something really interesting about kind of reading that after coming back from Brazil. There was one day when our group went to the Amazon and we visited a couple of communities that live there, an indigenous community, Quilombola community. Quilombolas are communities descended from runaway slaves in Brazil. And all really fascinating because they were talking to us about how like they've lived in this land for an extremely long time, and there are all these different interests that want to kick them off. And the kind of subtext of it was sort of like, for what? Like, why do it? There's like a mining company that wanted to push them off and did for a moment until they fought back with the MST and others and reclaimed the land that's theirs. There's like carbon markets that are trying to offer the bizarre trade of being like, okay, what if we preserve your land, but in exchange, other people will destroy some other land, and that'll be like a trade-off? And the communities are like, no, we don't want to like license the destruction of another place because, I don't know, we're safe or whatever. And there's this kind of sense in which like that dialogue with nature in the Amazon is so important for, for the Amazon, but also for just human beings in general to be like, it matters that there are people that live there, not for the simple fact of like even just respecting their rights or something, but just for like the recognition that there's a different kind of like thinking that's engendered by being in that space, and like a different kind of way of relating to other human beings, to even global issues and so on. And it's kind of like the more you lose of biodiversity, the more you lose of creation, but also the more you lose of like human means of interacting with each other and the planet and so on. And I don't know, it's like especially moving, I guess, is what I'm saying, to have gone to the Amazon and imagine that there are other people in the world trying to like destroy it or trying to get people out of it or displace people from it. Like there's a huge kind of chain reaction of things that you lose when you do that. And again, like for what? So we can like, I don't know, make more beef or soybeans or do more carbon emissions, or there's never like a better reason to do that.
It's hard to even get a grasp on exactly like how alienated we are from the world that we live on. And it's something like this that really like, I guess, shakes me about that, because I personally, like me myself, I couldn't even imagine to begin having that like kind of thought about the place that I live. It's such a wildly different way to think about the place that you live. And we've done a great job of separating ourselves and like keeping that separation really secure. So always great to hear that other people are thinking this out in different ways. And I don't know, I'm not sure we could ever recover it, but it's good. It's good to listen to people who have not lost it, in its entirety.
Yeah, we should not be destroying the Amazon for no good reason. That's what I would like to say.
A great thing to say. I'd like to say one more thing, unless you have any other articles you want to talk about.
No.
Great. I want to talk about a Sojourners article really quick. So this was published in Sojourners a few days ago. It's by Michael Wolf, who is the senior pastor at Lake Street Church of Evanston in Evanston, Illinois. You might have heard of it. It's one of those great suburbs. Michael Wolf is an American Baptist pastor. That's the thing. You probably don't recognize his name, but you would definitely recognize his face. He was arrested outside of the Broadview ICE facility outside of Chicago. There's a really famous picture that has definitely floated around the internet at this point. He's like laying on his chest on the asphalt and he's getting arrested by, I don't know, police officers or whatever. And he has a very pained look on his face, but he's wearing a collar and like a big cross necklace and stuff. He's very identifiable as clergy. Anyways, he wrote an article for Sojourners called "I Was Arrested Outside of an ICE Facility. We Need to Shut ICE Down." Great stuff. Love it. And the article is very cool. It's basically just explaining, the circumstances, why he was protesting, why he was arrested. That seems suspicious. He was arrested because the police wanted to arrest him and they wanted to clear out the protesters. That's really all that it comes down to. He was there because, he wanted to stand up for the people who ICE had captured, who they've, kidnapped. That seems like a Christian thing to do. That's part of his Christian witness in particular. The article is cool, and it talks a lot about the time that he spent kind of in jail waiting to be released and the kind of community that formed around the other people who were also arrested in Cook County Jail. But the end of the article is what was really striking to me, and I just wanted to really quickly read it because I think it's a good one. So he says this: "Violence is never the answer for Christians, and violence against our righteous protests cannot stop us. Perfect love casts out fear, and we remain unafraid. Remaining unafraid and grounded in love is only possible through the power of God's message and the clarity of purpose that we have to challenge dehumanization wherever we find it." And then the concluding sentence is, "Prayers are welcome, but prayer alone will not close Broadview's ICE processing facility. It will take action and clarity of purpose. It will take more people being willing to get involved and follow the lead of my fellow protesters. It will take readers like you to make real change happen, and I'm confident that a new day is coming." I appreciated all of it. I mean, it's all great. The whole article is good and it's worth reading, but I appreciate the call to action at the end. I get so frustrated when people over-historicize or over-intellectualize a particular issue, especially around activism. But this is just you have to come. And that's the only thing to it, is that you can pray all you want, but you need to show up. And man, I've been to some protests and some strikes and things where people just did not show up, and it sucks so bad. And you don't, it means you're not winning. So just want to signal boost this article. I'll put it in the comments, but you just gotta show up. That's the thing. Sometimes even sometimes protesting can feel extremely pointless, because there's no clear way of winning. There's no by going to a protest, you're not really throwing any levers of power or whatever. You're just showing up. And there's all kinds of strategic reasons why that isn't always the case, and it can still be important to show up. But I think there's also something that's really important just about being there in terms of a Christian witness, especially when it comes to something like ICE. When you're actually going outside the facility, that seems more important. It seems more important just to show up, just to see what happens when you get there. And as this particular pastor shows, it means sometimes being arrested. I know that's all easy for me to say because I'm across the ocean and not there, and I'm not outside of the ICE facility either, but just a great note about activism. I think it's something that people should listen to. So anyways, worth going to read this article.
Yeah, I agree. And cool to see too that there is such a ecumenical response these days to ICE in particular.
Yeah.
You have this particular example. You have the Catholics also in Chicago, making their pilgrimages to the detention center and being denied the right to distribute the Eucharist. I feel like there's such a a kind of like ecumenism to recognizing that this is like just bad and wrong. And there's something really impressive about that. I think it's also a kind of important thing for Christians in particular, given that Christofascism is like the ideology that's in power. And, there are like annoying atheists out there or whatever who will be like, and that's just Christianity and Christianity is stupid. But it's also like, you can't really blame them if they don't see other Christians out there. And, I feel like it's great that there are Christians out there. It would be great if there were even more. And I think that's kind of the key, is to be like, how do we, I mean, this is something we talk about on the podcast a lot. How do we kind of take responsibility for what our tradition is doing, and basically be like, nobody's going to provide a counterweight to that except for us. And there's something to that that's really impressive. And yeah, just nothing but total respect for people who are really putting themselves and their freedom and their bodies and reputations and so on the line. I feel like that's the test that Jesus gives at the end is, what did you do for the least of these? And some people are passing it and other people are not. And there's something really, inspiring about seeing people kind of give that challenge, and makes me want to reflect on how to be adequate to that myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's like it's a scary thought, even for Christians specifically who are, liberal leaning, or maybe they're on the left, whatever that might mean, who knows. But like, you can post radical stuff on your Twitter account all day long. Like, you can post your best Dorothy Day quotes, and that is fine. No one's mad at you for doing that. But like, Dorothy Day is not here. So like, what are you going to do specifically about this situation? It's always a good question to ask. I think that is worth thinking through. I mean, and don't let me be like too overbearing and preachy either. It's not possible to go to every protest. And sometimes, people shouldn't go to them, especially if they are in more vulnerable or precarious situations. I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons not to go and get arrested. I think that is very important to say. But also, like, you should find, yeah, absolutely. You should find ways to show up, though, in other ways. I think that's worth doing. So, something to continue to interrogate about our own Christian practice in the world. Who knows?
Yeah. Something to talk about maybe more later on. But I do think that's a good point, too, at the end, to mention that, like, showing up looks, can look many different kinds of ways. Like, something that I used to talk about a lot, especially when I was doing more organizing stuff, is like, I would talk to friends who would be like, I support that cause and I think it's great and important, but I have like nothing left in the tank. I have no time. I have to raise these kids. I got like a job and my rent is too high, and like all genuinely good and true reasons for not showing up. And I think people would be like, often kind of confess that, feeling guilty. They'd be like, I wish I could do more. But the thing that I would always say, even as an organizer, is like, there are lots of ways to contribute. Like, you can contribute financially. You can find ways to lend your skills that are maybe like less getting your body in space, but maybe more like, I don't know, you're willing to make a social media post or learn how to make them, or I don't know, send a bunch of emails in the evening when other people are busy and whatever, can't send them. Like, there's like dozens of ways to kind of push something forward. And I think for every picture you see of somebody being arrested, there are like dozens and dozens of meetings and people taking notes and like reading minutes and stuff that happen all behind and before and after that. So just to affirm, I guess there's lots of ways to show up, but all that being said, it does make a difference to have people in a space in public.
Yeah, big time.
Thanks for listening to the Magnificast. If you like what you heard, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/themagnificast. There's a good community of folks, and people are getting ready to read the liberating, what is it called? Help me out, Matt. Something about Christmas. We talked about it on the show. Richard Horsley's book.
The Liberation of Christmas.
Look at my bookshelf. Nothing's organized. Okay. The Liberation of Christmas. Anyway, it's a very good book. We talked about it a few years ago, I think, and it's really fun. And so some folks are going to read it together in the Discord. You could do it with them if you want. Our book, also Enough is Enough on Degrowth, Capitalism, and Liberation Theology, is available for pre-order at Fortress Press. You can get it in other places too, but why not get it from the source? Get it for yourself, get it for your friends, get it for your library and your pastor for Christmas. You can buy it, you can pre-order it for Christmas, make a little card that says, I got you this, and you'll get it in May. And I feel like that is such a great gift.
People...
It's the gift that will make them... It'll make them excited on the 25th, and they'll get excited again in the spring.
There's nothing that people love more than the promissory note that there's a gift in the future when they're supposed to be getting a gift today. They love that. That's something that people definitely like and will not be frustrating to them.
Yeah, I love receiving the equivalent of an IOU, but this one is even better because it means I already paid for it. And the best part is you don't even have to tell them you paid for it or not. You could not even pay for it till you want to later. Just give them the note and then make sure that you do pay for it.
So important.
Okay, our music is by Amaria Armstrong and the outro is by The Illogical Spoon, and we'll see you next week.
I don't wanna get up for church in the morning, souls alive. Heaven come to earth and there won't be no church. We'll meet down by the riverside. There we'll swim with all creation. Never get tired, never bored. Don't worry, someday there'll be no dam between us and our Lord. Jackson, you keep your hoods up. Keep your hoods up and you stay up late. In Jackson, you keep your hoods up. Well, you keep your hoods up and you stay up late. Oh, don't mind a cold night, but we might mind